Buon tardi, good afternoon, good avond. Welcome, listeners. Noske Bonaire Bak presents a critical debate on Bonaire, which is called Raw Talk. My name is Devika Bissessar, President of Bonaire Human Rights, and with me, Shahir Theodore, owner of Sheer Clip. Shahir?
Vicky, thanks. Buon tardi, James and Hans Els. Feliz dia, by the way.
Yes. Thank you, Shahir. Our panelist today is Mr. James Finis, President of Noske Bonaire Bak, and invited guest Hans Els. Welcome, gentlemen. We begin with Hans.
Thank you, Devinka. It's a pleasure being here, and I want to congratulate you with your first program, Raw.
Thank you.
And naturally, speaking of Dia de Rincon, it's also International Day of Jazz, so all jazz lover, we have a special day today.
Okay. Can you explain 2 minutes on yourself, on your background, briefly?
Yes. Well, I'm born in Curacao. I'm from Bonaire descendants. I did my middle school in Curacao. I did my first bachelor in Curacao also. And then I did my master's in Holland, and I did my PhD in the US, in Louisiana, that is.
Wow. And what you specialize in?
Well, the first two, I did business administration, and the PhD, I did international commerce.
Okay. Well, welcome to our program, Raw Talk, today. I hope you have lots of fun. Mr. Finis?
Good afternoon, listeners, everybody who following also on the social media and everything. Yes, today, of course, is another day that we will try to talk about to the Caribbean and the international community. That's why we have having programs on Bonaire for our local audience, but today is special. Thank you that you are helping us to bring us to all the community. Yes, I'm James Finis from born in Bonaire. My roots are Bonairean, and I live my life in Bonaire, and my parents and everyone. So I'm one, I think, I can say safely I'm an indigenous as far as I can trace back. Bonaire is with the roots of the Kaikatio and some African roots, and also of African and some European traces, because we also have that somewhere. So, but yes, I'm here today as activist, a human rights activist. Of course, I went to school in Bonaire too, and university in Curacao. But I turned human rights activist after the dissolution of the Netherlands Antilles, where, in my view, went away that my human rights at the time and for my two kids were violated of trash. And that's where I started thinking, I started reading, I started understanding that what was not told to us before in my life, that there are things that's human rights and self-determination rights and decolonization, those terms I learned, and from that on, I have been fighting basically to try to regain those rights for me and for Bonaire.
Thank you, Mr. Finis. And Mr. Hans Els, and your occupations, because James explained he's a human rights activist in your past positions.
Yes. Well, basically at this time I'm retired from career trajectory.
Okay.
But I did 17 years of financial institutional approach to our communities, both Curacao and Bonaire, and somewhat also St. Martin. I worked those 17 years at the pension fund, the general pension fund of the Netherlands Antilles at the time. Then I worked 6 years in the offshore business, international financial sector. And then I did more or less 10 years of Bonaire government advisory, and also even being briefly a commissioner for the islands.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hills. So now I will explain the concept of this debate. Guys, the idea of this debate, Raw Talk, presented by Noske Bonaire Bak, to put attention on all fundamental and constitutional issues of Bonaire, in focus and the attention of the Caribbean, the community, the international community, the Dutch and Antillean community living in Holland, especially for the Dutch population living in Bonaire, where Mr. Finis has a chance to explain his trajectory of his vision for Bonaire and its people, which most often the Dutch and a very small amount of local news media do not write Noske Bonaire back actions and press releases accurately, but changes its narrative and write their version with another agenda completely opposite to the intention of Noske Bonaire back and Mr. Finis. In order to have a balanced and objective debate, we invited a political figure or a prominent leader of Bonaire who can also speak his or her opinion on James Finis and his foundation, Noske Bonaire back. This important debate is sponsored by Bonaire Human Rights Organization in the hope that the newly Dutch inhabitants of Bonaire, international and the Dutch community understand the meaning of Noske Bonaire back. Since most of the dialogue of Noske Bonaire back was mainly in our native language Papimento, which result in a misconception of this group, so today and every last Friday of the month, we will do this debate in English. Bonaire Human Rights see this debate as an obligation to dialogue and lobby for the purpose of the identification of specific problems and trends affecting all members of Bonaire society and the determination of the extent of their causes and effects. Collaborated with local and international foundations and other entities with similar objectives, educating, raising awareness of all human rights of Bonaire. So this is the concept of it, Shai? You got the concept?
Yes.
Yes.
I will start with Hans Els.
No, let's start with the rules. The rules.
Yes.
Yeah, explain the rules. Yes.
You can speak.
Okay, sure. Each panelist has one chance within the time given to explain, elaborate, and position the question, with no additional questions or follow-up. The two opinions explanation will remain for the listeners' audience to judge themselves, meaning that the audience will judge for themselves. They are the judge this time because of time consumption, time limit. So you have each question 5 minutes. Shay? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll start with Hans Els. Let me put the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. In your opinion, who Bonaire belongs to? How and why?
Well, yes, it's an interesting question because naturally there is no right or wrong or yes or no. Our colonial history, which entails this whole region, has been made about more or less 500 years ago. It's more, but anyway. And based on that timeline that we have up to modern times, we see different changes of colonizers. We see different status as these islands have evolved. And you have 3 or 4 powers, the French, the English, the Spaniards, and naturally the Dutch. They have fought for this region. But moving on from the history on international base, on international law, the owner of these territories will be the Dutch. And on a human rights platform of discussion, you can argue and you can define even that the Bonairean, the locals, would have their rights to say they own Bonaire. So it's an ample discussion that we will have to discuss, not today, but in the future. How do the Bonairean position themselves towards this big question? It is a very big question that, if you ask me, it has not been topic of the past 10 years, neither before. And maybe your group, Noske Bonaire back, should be maybe more involved into that topic. But it is a broad-based topic question and answer.
And some people think...
No,
James
James has to answer.
Oh, yeah, James.
Yes,
Okay,
James' turn, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
See.
Okay. Well, in our opinion, who Bonaire belongs to and how and why. Yes, it goes back in the history, as in a sense. So yes, we all have a history of the Caribbean. Is why we're sitting here today is because of a colonial history. And the colonial history teaches us that we learn from it as far that sure that we were colonized by different European powers. And the last one to colonize us was the Dutch, because we passed all the hands of the French, the Spanish, and the British and all. But then after that came a period where slavery was abolished, where us as a colonized people, I'm calling myself colonized people today, because we are subject to a foreign administration. That's why I'm born in, and that's why we still are subject to a foreign administration. So we can call ourselves administrated people of colonized people. Mm-hmm. So from getting the rights from being a free people, free from slavery in 1863, start the process of starting participation as a people in the governments of your island, of your territory, and there we pass through the Antillean history, where the democratic system was born in the Antilles, and where people start getting voting rights and things like that, and that lead up till for me, my way as no scout Bonaire back. I explain it. Our approach is that our rights, when I can say for myself, if I'm trying to say where we get more stronger right, is was in 1945, where the United Nations, after World War, make declarations and charter, and Holland, our colonizers, become part of that agreement, co-sign the charter, agree with the resolutions, and with there was a right born that all the colonized countries of territories should become equal and free as the colonized who colonized them. So these rights I feel I read about, and I think from a base for my opinion, because it's opinion before my country is when you have a cannon and an army, and this is my country. You come, I kill you. That's how we define countries before in the eras before. But with United Nations, we become a little more uncivilized. We say no, countries belong to the people, and they get self-determination rights. So our self-determination rights means that this country, we have the right to govern in one day. And that then is you, because you govern it, it's your thing. Of course, we are in a kingdom, make it a little more complicated, but within a kingdom, every king could have their own rights too. And that happened too in our history. That was a lot of developments. And with the developments in the kingdom, these rights start changing from the Antilles, because we become a country in the kingdom, Netherlands Antilles. But then when Netherlands Antilles was dissolving, they start giving every island also the self-determination right. So with our self-determination right, together with United Nations, higher international law and resolution, give us actually as the people of the island that right of self-determination, and also to say to the island belongs to you then, because the self-determination rights give you actually the right to decide this is actually my territory, how we govern it, and then in that you can also be part of a bigger system, like a kingdom. And in the Caribbean you have also Commonwealth system that they share the same king, for example. It's in the Caribbean, there's a lot of Caribbean countries are independent, but they're still within the Commonwealth with England. So there's several differences, but a Jamaican, you ask him from who is Jamaica, he won't tell you it's from Great Britain. He said Jamaica is ours. So that's, in that sense, we're trying to promote this discussion that the Bonaireans become strong. They say we have the right to decide on Bonaire, and that's make us Bonaireans, and that means that island belonging to us.
Thank you, Mr. Finis. Thank you so much. So, listeners out there, so you are the judge. Mr. Els is saying that Bonaire belongs to Holland, judging by the colonial roots. And Mr. Finis is saying that Bonaire belongs to the Bonairean people because of, after 1945, the United Nations treaties that were signed with Holland, these islands have the right to govern themselves. At this moment, Bonaire is being administrative by the colonizer, Holland. Is that both clear for you? Yeah? Okay.
Okay. Let's go with the next question. Some people think Nostra Bonaire back is a racist group and anti-Dutch. In your opinion, who are the people who think that?
Well, I'm not of the opinion that you are a racist group. I believe that sometimes you could use more diplomacy in your actions, but okay, that's all groups and all persons who are a tail to a group policy. No, I do not think you are a racist. I think you are fighting for a cause that you believe in and you see possible that by continuing your process towards getting Bonaire on the list of the United Nations and a reconsideration of the status that Bonaire has, I believe it's a sound-based idea, based to what we have seen in the past years that other small island nations around the world have achieved. And basically it is to the community of Bonaire and the political community of Bonaire to make it also a discussion with Holland. And I believe that, and this is my opinion, that we have the opportunity to discuss and further the talks to better our level of subsistence, resilience, and progress on Bonaire. However, you have all the rights to be against. So, one, you are not racist. You are based on human rights, based on internal constitutional rights that we have in the Dutch kingdom. You have all the rights to do that. And if you find and you have the national support to support your movement in this endeavor, you should do it.
See, second question, Jerry? You have a second one?
Yes. No, this one.
Yes, in your opinion, the people who thinks that? That's the second one. For hand.
The second one?
No, here. It says here, in your opinion. Yeah.
In your opinion, who are the people who think that?
I believe the Bonairean is a very open-minded person, or people, I must say. And if there is people who feel themselves, inclined to think that way, I believe it's a small group.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Els. James?
Yes. Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Finis.
Go with James.
Okay. Okay, this is it's a question of this is not really a question. This is, let's say, as some kind like a propaganda or something has been created around our movement, our standing up, let's say, for our rights. We said this right, hey, this is not right. What is going, because we have human rights, have self-determination right. We're fighting for that. So in that sense, that we said, hey, but Holland, then we have someone who, in our opinion, is taking the right from us, of suppressing our right, of violating our right, and that's Netherlands. So that is the, let's say, the other part that we are fighting to get our rights from, right, as how we propose. Then in that effort to say, hey, but you're wrong, because this is my right, I see they start changing it around to making we are against them, against the Holland, against Netherlands, because and say, why? Wait, this is my right. This you should take into consideration. I have a right to my own culture. You have a right to maintain my identity. You have the right to keep speaking Papiamento is our language. These are my rights. But we realize and saying those things and start campaigning to say, hey, don't come populate our island, because we also have our people who has the right to build up themselves here, to develop here. So if you come fill it with you people, for example, and then our people don't have the opportunity. We don't have that level of same playing level field that we should have, because it's a different thing. So all those discussions, we talk about it, we bring them up, and then what I noticed that what happened with the other Dutch, other language speaking press, for them the Dutch press, they are not fair in our thing. They don't come say, James said, based on this resolution of this human right, he's saying this. No, because that's what I stand come from, because it's written. This is everything is written everywhere in the international law and human rights, what we're fighting for. But then they come saying, but he is against the Dutch. They don't report what your issue is. They're going to be with their own idea what they want to tell their people. So till up today in Holland or somewhere where they report, they don't know what's going on Bonaire about our rights. The only thing, he is against the Dutch. I'm not against any Dutch, any people.
They're saying the wrong thing.
No. I mean, they're reporting the wrong thing, and then it becomes like a say, like as a group of people who say, let's say this, let's concentrate on this, on him. It's against you, and the people start believing against it. I against no one. We are the most friendliest people actually in the world. Who come to Bonaire don't want to live and return to Bonaire because we're friendly. I'm even married with a Dutch lady. I have kids. So how can I be against any Dutch people? So that is something that is just stigmatization, trying to create a stereotype in me on the field. And that is what is happening, and that is what we have to keep speaking about, because we are not fighting a racial race. We are fighting a rights race. We fight for our rights. And racial discrimination, I know Holland has a lot of trouble with in this world. It's not for nothing. He's still under scrutiny of Black Pete and all those type of things. Lately, the last government fall in Holland, they have no election because of racism on the level of governments. So don't come bring that thing on me, on Bonaire, who only trying to see, hey, do you read my right is this? I only trying to do that, but a government level are being doing racist thing, and that is not spoken on Bonaire, or being in comparison with what we're doing. So I think, of course, I can speak much more, but because of the limit time, I just say that the people who thinks that are the people who has an objective to paint me and paint our group of stigmatizing is something that actually doesn't belong to us, actually belong to them. Because if they respect us as their equal, they would have us anchored, embedded in the Constitution on equal rights. That's the racism starts there. And even to do with laws. We don't have power to do nothing. How we can be racist?
5 seconds.
Yes. Thank you, Shay. Yeah. So, listeners, radio listeners, second question, and we have both panelists agreeing with each other. So that's interesting. Mr. Els says that he don't think that the Noske Bonaire is racist, that it's a small group, and he sees that we are have a way to do it, but he's agreeing with the trajectory of Noske Bonaire of relisting Bonaire. And Mr. Finis is explaining that he's being used as a scapegoat to be branded as racist, and which he's not. He's defending his islands within rights, and he's fighting a world of rights, which is very unfamiliar on Bonaire. So we go on. Thank you, listeners. So you are judging the second question. So we go on, and it's my turn. Okay? Yeah? Okay, so we go to the third question, and this question is for Mr. Els. In your opinion, what is Noske Bonaire fighting for? Is it independence, or is it some other objective?
Okay. Naturally, I see the Nos Cape Bonaire back. We want Bonaire back as the movement. I have known Mr. James Finis for some time, and at a certain moment in 2004, we almost agreed on the same level that the preparation for the referendum at the time. I was the first president of the referendum, and the only referendum prepared with a recognized United Nations representative. And after he left in 2004 from our situation, he went to Iraq, where there was, after the invasion of the US and after there was a local government established, you had to organize a election. So he left Bonaire and went to Iraq. That was the gentleman's name. He was Irish. Was Sean Dunn.
Sean Dunn, I remember.
And he was the only one that really came as an envoy of the United Nations. I believe along the time, these past 10 years, I would say, you have evolved from a fighting position for your rights to a more classical and constitutional seeking objective, where you were at the beginning fighting to detain, to stop the process of integration into Holland. And as it happened, you try to change it into, after we got into the system, and in the beginning, I must admit, we had hard times. We had the exchange, the change from the florin to the dollar that hiked up inflation. We had cultural misunderstanding between the two populations and the government system that we had to adopt. And so it took about 5 to 6 years before we stabilized. And in that process, I should say, I noticed a change from a more activistic, a more direct, a more impact manner of dealing with topics, and where you got foreign expertise, where you got in the Central Stations fight for let's say equal rights, human rights. There you got yourself involved into a higher level discussion, a more constitutional discussion, and from there I understand, and now I will answer the question. I believe that your target for putting Bonaire into the re-evaluation commission or the evaluation commission, where Holland will have to adhere to let's say international accepted and recognized levels of the progress of the island. That is still, as I said at the beginning, that is something that I feel that the locals and the local politician can still do with the agreements that we have with Holland. And based on those agreements, we can still internally help and better our position as a population. And I believe that your fight or your intentions is not bad, because you will flank the possible development that may continue or may not continue. So it is a very interesting topic. I know out of experience, based on what I already said, I was president of the first referendum commission. I was vice president of a commission for regional autonomy, such as Puerto Rico, Argentina with the Malvinas Islands, and the 3 islands, Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, in 2006. In 2007 up to 2009, I was in charge of that commission for the COPAL. But I must say that it is an interesting avenue that you're coursing,
Yes.
and I wish you well.
See, the question, independence, or you didn't answer
No,
that?
I don't think you are seeking independence.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much. Mr. Finis? What are you fighting for?
Okay, yes, this was what I understood, as Mr. L said. I also understood in 2004 that when they start talking about a referendum and Antilleans, I listen and say something I think is not 100% right. So with that part, as Hansel said, yes, when I was asked what's going on, and then I stand up. No, I just stand up and say something is wrong with this, what's happening, what's going on here with this referendum idea, with Bonaire Nova things, that something is missing and something is wrong, I think, and I stand up and spoke out. And then, of course, Mr. S says, remember me? Yes, I remember, because I went on the radio as the only Bonairean who was not affiliated, and say, what is happening now with this referendum is not right, because you want to ask people questions. This question doesn't match because there's no logic to the question and the answers for the referendum. And also, how come you kind of ask people at this point in time of something like that, and we are not even we're not free in our opinions, we're not informed. So all those things raised my conscience, and I stood up and speak out, and I speak out against the referendum. I say, hey, what you're doing here, I think your guys are being used by politicians, because I tried to put my logic in it. I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. So with time, some got upset on me, but with time, they realized that I had some real points, but I made them because when it was developing, it was going a wrong way, and it continued, as Mr. S said, it went wrong, in our opinion. Today I'm sitting here because of that, and not me saying it, because after now a lot of international experts has been studied the case of Bonaire and has made the assessment on it, and they all come to the same conclusion. And the first one, I say, even a Dutch like the Mr. Soens, Professor Soens and Duyf, right on the dissolution as own Dutch professor said, that it's not right what happened here. So it's not me, what I felt that day and spoke out. People still take me wrong for it, but it was something, still, it was scientifically researched by experts that come to the same conclusion that it's the wrong way. So from there, by 10-10-10, when that happened, the solution happened, and a status was imposed on us, I felt that, because I had no choice. I didn't have any options. Then I realized that United Nations, I read on by it's a long story, but I know 5 minutes is very short to answer other. But anyway, I realized that United Nations, I read up, hey, they speak about decolonization and non-self-governing territories. I read articles 15, 14, and those things that are attached to our right of self-determination. And I know self-determination, that understand, is a human right. So I stand and speak up. Even people that understand say, you have to be in a political party of politicians to speak up. No, say, no, this is not about politics. This is about rights. It's my human rights, and it's for my 2 kids that was underage, and it's from you all. Of course, you don't know, but I'm going to fight for my rights. And I never say I will fight for Bonaire. I write my letter, say I fight for my right and my 2 kids. I write that letter. And since then, I fight for my rights and from, kids become now older age, but they can fight for themselves. I still fight for my right. Everything I do is based on my right. I don't need people to vote for me, because you don't have to vote. You're born with rights. You're born with these rights. We don't know that. So that's why today, what I'm fighting for my rights that I understand, and they're written there very clear. And democracy and self-determination falls on the category of human rights, and they create a confidence, international confidence, like the socio-economic rights you get. And then also they have the political rights. So all those rights, no. And independence, no. We're fighting now to go on the list of territories that's not self-governance. Because on 10 October 2010, we lose a major part of our self-governance. And so we fight to go back on that list as a protected list. It's a list that protects countries, small territories like us, to have be guarded on the Decolonization Committee, the Call of the United Nations. So that is at this moment we're fighting for to get back on that list, so we can we said continue, like Ms. Estelle, continue our development, yes, because our development has to continue, but on the guidance, on the protection, on the assistance that will protect our cultural rights. Our culture. Today's the Rincon, yes, it will protect our culture, our identity.
Your time is out.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Finis. Thank you very much. This is a lot of fun. So both of you are saying Bonaire, Nosque Bonaire Bak is now fighting for independence. And we are explaining and heard a little bit of all what happened with the referendum, the first referendum, and you were the president, Mr. Hels, and you stopped it. You stopped the first referendum.
Could I
Yes.
reinforce?
Yes.
I stopped it based on two things. One, there was a political influence that was not allowed and should not be allowed, and I got, let's say, the support of the United Nations envoy. And secondly, I had to responsible. I was responsible for the second chamber and the island council, so I could not allow political influence into the procedures from working the referendum, and that's a standard international rule. And then you had the fact of Mr. Finis, who indeed wrote that letter. And and when we took notice of the letter, I saw immediately what he's saying, the human rights and what evolved in the past few years was correct. And my consideration was also correct, because in conclusion, I must say that the state, the Dutch state, was not prepared for this development. And you have seen it along the years too. The Dutch have done even well to adapt what we wanted or what was pushed as a topic, to include it into the Dutch state. To give you an idea, the RCN and the Dutch representative on the island does not exist into the civil servant constitution. And that is why you will see that eventually, and this is more of a forecasting of my behalf, that you will see that the RCN will become one government, not two levels, and the Dutch representative will disappear, and it will go to our governor, the gezaghebber, as we call it. So it's an evolving process. But from the beginning, it was my opinion, one, political influence was not allowed, and secondly, the Dutch state, who was to receive and process the results of the referendum, was not even aware of what would have happened.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we move on to the last and final question. So the question is, my turn? Yeah? Okay, I got a big...
6 minutes.
6 minutes, yes. They have 6 minutes each to answer. The question is, did the people voted for integration in Holland? Yes or no? Why nothing was done by The Hague when the people decision of 18th of December 2015, where 66% rejected the content of direct link on the breaking up of the Netherlands Antilles? And it was not respected, the referendum results, and Bonaire was anchored, embedded by The Hague in the Dutch constitution with unequal rights. So the question is, was Bonaire people voted for integration? What happened now? Like you say, what happened at this moment? And what happened to the referendum and the people's voice? Why it was not heard by The Hague? You have 6 minutes each to answer. We go first.
Okay.
Yeah?
It's a very important question again. And I must go a bit into history. All this started in 1993, where Curaçao mentioned that they wanted to be Curaçao first, something that I hear somewhere else first, but anyway, Curaçao first. And they opted to go to a referendum at the time, in 1995. And in 1993 and 1994, there was two referendums. There was referendums. All the islands went first in 1993, and Bonaire went last. But the beautiful part of that, that the result had resulted of maintaining the union, the federation of the Netherlands Antilles. So all 5 islands at that time. Remember, 1983 to 86, Aruba had separated itself from the federation of the Antilles. We were 6, then we became 5. And that lasted until more or less 94, after the referendum, that we decided to remain together. It took a couple of years, but then in 2000, in the year 2000, there was another referendum, but on the island of St. Martin. And the people of St. Martin chose to separate from the Antilles. And then that gave the opening to go to the Bonairean referendum in 2004. So basically, all that trajectory of 10 years, I must say, never, ever, none of the population of the 5 islands did vote for Holland yes or Holland no. Because that would have been the correct referendum to hold. Because then you would have saved all this trouble of 20 years, all this trouble that we went through, because we would have defined at the time that if we do stay with Holland, then we will work, we would have worked something out with Holland and maybe be an integral part of Holland as it should, or something else. Or, the other hand, you would have gotten that you chose for independence as 5 islands, and you would have gone that course, and we will still save time, because in the meanwhile we would have been independent, self-governed, proper economy, seeking alliances, and so forth. So I believe the basic, the elementary error that we made as a people of the Antilles was not choosing for a referendum that defined in 93, defined for Bonaire in 94, that we wanted a relationship or a long-term relationship with Holland. Mm-hmm. And it would have saved us a lot of time. Okay, it did not happen, but that's part of my answer, yes or no. So basically, what was the other part of the question?
In 2004, the people voted a referendum in 2004. Yes. So the question was, did they voted for integration? Yes or no? But what we are in now, the status we are in now. Yes,
but it evolved. When we went to the referendum, and we did not do yes or no, but we went with the 4-question option of the referendum. The people believed at the time, through propaganda, and also from what the local politicians explained, that they believed that they were going to be integrated. But when they voted in 2004, it still had to be worked out. And starting from 2005 to 2009, there was various options that was made. One you had from a political group that wanted a alliance with Holland, but with self-governing. And then you had another political group that wanted integration, full-fledged, but then in the negotiation it didn't result in that. So, you had variables. But what I should say at this time, after having passed those periods, and we all on Bonaire have experienced, there is still a lot to be done, and the result of what we have at this time is not complete.
See, and the second question, we have some minutes about the
1 minute.
The referendum of 2000 when the people rejected.
Oh yes. Well, that referendum had a two variable option. You would have voted for the option of if you are satisfied, and then you had another prescripted referendum that should have taken place, and that result, one, it was not adopted or accepted, and secondly, you didn't receive the second referendum. So you have this decision of a great majority of the community that has been placed aside.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Els. Mr. Finis, can you answer those two questions? Were we, when we voted for LASSO director, were the people misled as integration or not? And the second question was the results of 2015 referendum of 66%.
Cool.
Yes, that's where the issue actually is, because if the people choose according to what is prescribed, what is the international norms, and all of that, then you can contest that. Why we fighting, why I'm still here today is because it was not according to that, not only in my opinion at the time, as we talked during the program, but it became, I'll say, investigation from several international experts that come to the same conclusion that it didn't meet the basic requirements, what is accepted as I'll say, a free choice of the people, and also with all the consequences of the choice. So there where your decision counts. And because the people were not allowed to have that decision before we went into the new status, because that after we went in the status that the people couldn't say, I want this or not, then everybody will keep saying, yeah, but it's already like this, let's continue, but that is not right. Because on this level, wars was being fought. The Second World War, I can say my way, 80 million people die for us to have this right. That's why the World War fought over. The United Nations said, no, we don't want to fight this war anymore. You don't have to kill each other to decide on your own territory, on your own island, because we're talking now about self-governance. Deciding who take the decision on the island. That is what, at the end, everything comes on. Who decides? So that war was fought. The people died for us to have this right. So a simple question on a paper comes instead of bombs. That's why I'm explaining today to make it clear for people to understand. So that part, we're trying today to come back that, okay, it doesn't go right, so let's put it in the right perspective. The right perspective, in our opinion, is that there is a jurisdiction in the United Nations, especially created, that United Nations created to promote peace, to avoid wars. Right? That is United Nations based on. So in our case, we have a committee that can help islands like us who are in such this dispute of discussion of in this status, because this status is a disputed status. Was not approved by the people before, was rejected by the people after. So we think, only solution, I don't think we can talk with Holland about this. We don't think we can negotiate with Holland about this, but that didn't materialize for the last 70 years in our Antillian. I don't think it will materialize today just overnight. So we think there's a system like that in the United Nations that can assist islands like us and has successfully assisted over the time, because the whole Caribbean was like us. The whole Caribbean moved to developed another status where the people can have more say and more decision, but we move backwards in the timeline. So we think that going back at that point where it didn't go as it should go, we think to involve the United Nations back in this, because that was the United Nations was created for, as a referee of intermediator to help this type of discussion to come in an amicable, win-win, and diplomatic solution. That's why they're seeking for. That's why we think to. So that's why we're fighting hard so we can reach that position back where there's conversation of this discussion that between us, racists, of you against this. No, let's put it back, because these are written rules or written things that we can go back on it, and then our fight is that it was an integration. Yes, no, it wasn't, because it was an integration. Then I have no discussion today to say the people didn't vote it, and only the people rejected it in the referendum. In the 2015, it was more convincingly reject. So we think by going back on the list of the United Nations, we will have a possibility because to get the discussion back on another level, a level that we cannot handle ourselves because we show that we cannot handle. Our politicians cannot handle this. So that's why we think to bring up another level of experts who help other territories to get this done. But at the end, the Bonairean people has rights to feel good on their island, be happy on their island, live good on their island, not what happened with us after that. That's why we will fight till this right is restated in effect, so we can have a just and fair self-determination and decolonization process. Our decolonization is unsuccessful. We have the right to decolonize. However it goes, it doesn't decide on me. The people will choose, but they have the right to choose. They didn't choose for this. So we have the right to make a choice, and not a choice as before with manipulation of every politicians who think that they have to, this thing. This is not a political decision of politician. Not politicians from Bonaire, not from Holland. It's a people's right that is anchored at a higher level. That's where we're going for, and I think we will continue till we get there. We don't want nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Finis.
That's it.
Share, it's questions. This is very interesting debate. Very nice. I hope our listeners enjoying it. And I want to say hello to all the listeners internationally in the Caribbean, my friends in Statia and in Grenada, Trinidad, Guyana, and of course New York. Greetings to everyone. And I just want to give the closing words to both Mr. Els and Finis. We have a time check now. It's 5 till, yeah? So we have like 2 minutes each for closing. Yes, Mr. Els?
Okay, I would like to thank the invitation and most appreciative to have given my opinion. I must say that in closing that the United Nations has a special commission for decolonization. They have been instituted in 1961 and their period for functioning in a international sphere ended in 2011. So all discussions will have to go into more deeper and specific elaborations within the countries. And not to forget that the member of the United Nations is Holland. So whoever or you as a movement do choose to continue this path, you would have to reinforce yourself with more people, maybe capital, fundraising on an international scale, because the experience of the United Nations, and definitely after the 2011, is that within the United Nations itself, you have countries who will support you, who will be neutral, and who will not support you and still be changed by diplomatic negotiations. And that's the experience that I lived in 2006 and 2007. So I'm grateful for the invitation. I wish you well, and I believe you have a cause. It's all people of the world have their rights, to use James Finis' wording, have their rights to be autonomous and self-ruled. But there is the other reality of the economic development and the economic support. And that is my only question that I say. We need to fundament our economic production system.
Okay, Mr. Finis, can you make that very short? Because we have, we will, without the 1 minute probably to close.
See, yes, okay. Our struggle is to release Bonaire. In 2013, French Polynesia was released. French Polynesia was released, and the decolonization committee is the one who it falls back on it, that gives you possibilities to have fair, fair development, fair everything that is written in according to Article 73 of the United Nations. So that is, I see as our, see that as the only window that is, because other possibilities in the kingdom led today that I'm here today sitting. So I decided to just focus on that and try to make the most out of that. After that, I can say that Holland and those things, but if French Polynesia could be released against France, where France was against, and United States was against, Great Britain was against, Germany was against, and Holland was against, that gave me the courage to fight, because small islands in this world, on this principle of self-determination, we still make a chance. That's why I will fight, and because of what happened in 2013 with French Polynesia. Thank you.
I give you the chance to close quickly.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Mr. Hansels. So, feliz Irigong. That's it.
Thank you, guys. Yes, thank you.
Junta y guía para nos líder nan di turno, awe nos ta habri wowo, hanya nos de un cerca con nos no que ta. Con poco conocimiento di propio pasado y sin ninguna idea unda tabai, ta unco so ta mantenernos na vida. Come y lembe. Nos ta come nos mes ruman pa queda na vida anto lembe extranjero que recuta ta mantenernos na vida. Come y lembe ta na moda a hoy en día. Boneriano ta critica boneriano. Familia ta lastra familia. Vizinha ta bringa vizinha. Anto ta elogia esun kuna nosa niki pato a bruye. Mi ta bai mas leo ainda. Riba instrucción, nos líder na local ta dobla dentur esquina y boh. Come nos mes ruman, purba frustra e lucha que ta iba pa nos tur. Gis pa complacer algún extranjero, con nos no sabemos ta kiko ta na verdadero intención.
Ese no que me tu amor